What's up, guys? West Shrimp West Average recording live. Tonight we're going to get into this episode 2 of Hypermiling miniseries, part 1. Before I go any further, I want to give you guys who watch this 2 warnings. I will give the same thing in part 2 as well. 1. You might encounter problems with smoke scrubbing equipment bolted onto your engine. And vehicles that are because they're mandated by government regulations. While they do have a good purpose, they themselves can be a good thing, but they have a two-directional way of working. When there's less oxygen coming out the tailpipes detected from the oxygen sensors in the tailpipe where the smoke comes out of, the engine's computer will tell it that the engine's running too rich and cut down on fuel in the burning or combustion chamber. Now, if there's more oxygen coming out the tailpipes, the computer say, "It's running too lean, put more fucking fuel in it. Put it in there." And it will make the engine pump more fuel to make the smoke emissions go to what the computer's programming says, quote unquote, normal. 2. If you're not careful, you might risk voiding warranty work and insurances if you try some of these more modern car models, unless you can get an insurance company that will cover your engine and the aftermarket modifications to the motor, to the engine itself. And if that's the case, great! Once you've gotten that in the clear, if you got that in the clear, that's awesome, because, well, let me go into it. Well, so finding insurance cover that covers everything you need, and the aftermarkets, that's what they'll likely be listed as. That you want to consider getting a tailpipe test to prove to the people at the private insurance company that the emissions are at least as clean as what the regulations want, or ideally at least somewhat better. Second choice is get a vehicle from as late as, depending on what maker of the vehicle and what series the models are from, as late as 1995 to the early 2000s. You can put these mods on them, save yourself the money to make repairs, as well as redoing to take them to a good mechanic, and actually a good fucking mechanic, to make the extra parts removed, so it'll be like how the factory make it. If you actually do want to do something like this, try to be sneaky with it. But the fact of me telling you this little tactic will probably be listened to, and like, oh, we better test this shit. Or they say, oh, okay. Or they don't check because they don't give enough fuck, and you're following the regulations regardless. And they can't prove it. I'm getting that here. Now, it'll be like how the factory made it. If you have replacements to take the mods off, ways to take the mods off and put it back together just like it was in the factory, minus the better radiator or certain engine adjustments, minus those. Here are my top 7 engine mods in this episode. Number 1 is the vacuum gauge. It's the lowly vacuum gauge is the grandpappy of all fuel economy instrumentation. Installing and using one remains a very cost-effective way to help a driver fine-tune certain driving habits and tasks for better mileage and fuel. Particularly the driving with load, which is also abbreviated as DWL. You can also see the 100 plus Hypermiling driving tips if you want. Hypermiling tips. As well as aiding in efficiency, adding a vacuum gauge is also a good indicator for the general health of an engine. Number 2 is very controversial, but they do have evidence supporting them. Number 2, fuel prevaporizers. These, when used right, could fully vaporize fuel into a fully gaseous state. And a lot of people, even the website page wisegeek.com even gets this wrong, and then makes a bunch of fake arguments, empty claims and non-arguments on behalf of what that's going off of. And it conflates atomization with vaporization, a very bad conflation fallacy in the auto mechanic world. That's practiced and actually taught, unfortunately, or if you're no mechanic that knows the difference, say, well, fuel injection needs to get the droplets as small as possible in atomization so vaporization can happen. If you know mechanics, that most mechanics though will know this. Ideally, good mechanics will know the difference. They already. But massive mileage claims have been made. People on YouTube, such as The Vapor Kid, Tyson Caples, earlier videos, Charlie Chopman, which is The Vapor Kid's other channel, several others, have recreated these concepts on small engines and in vehicles and made them work. If not fullest, at least they made them work and show them they're capable of working. Although they're simplistic and clunky in some of their designs in some of the videos, they worked and worked pretty damn well. I have changed my mind on the extreme mileage claims since my Truth About Fuel Prevaporizers mini-series due to more proof showing up the science to it all, backing it up, the various principles applied to fuel pre-vaporizing, such as boiling under vacuum with heat or boiling under heat with plus pressure, cracking heavier molecules while making the other lightweight stuff evaporate off, etc., 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 mixing it the same ratio as liquid with air. The aerodynamic mods for vehicles, the ECU controlled carburetors for four-stroke engines that actually have existed in cars in the past can be proved today. That can be paired with this shit, this modification shit. And proven this is more than likely possible without cars being made into hybrids that can have massive mileage. And then the fucking hydraulic alternative to transmissions. Pair all these together, it's very possible we can have 300 mpg non-hybrid cars. Fucked up as that sounds, it is true. It is possible. Some of my opinion of the Truth About Fuel Prevaporizer mini-series is I do still stick to the claim of, okay, there's a mix of, okay, a little bit of invention secrecy attempting based on the documents in the Charlie Chopman video where the auto mechanic minus the, lead more or less disintegrates claim, which is not true, but forgive the man. Still, points he made or besides that still hold. And then a few other things. Various actual seeing is believing. I've seen evidence. These guys just using cheap cameras, going around, holding the cameras up to them. There's no actual evidence of editing as far as I can tell. And as far as I've gotten other people to see, there's no because video editing is pretty expensive. Really fucking expensive. So, yeah. But yeah, there is a lot of evidence to support the claims about fuel pre-vaporizing that are not pseudoscience and there's not perpetual motion. It just means getting the most BTU out of each BTUs out of each charge of fuel and getting the most out and actually looping back some heat loss, turning it back and use for work what you can. That's all it is. That's not anti-entropy. It just makes it happen at a later. It just makes it happen later. Entropy. It just takes longer to get to the same goal of entropy. So it's not anti-thermodynamics. Yada yada yada. Whatever. Point is, it's not what you call anti-thermodynamics. It does not defy them. Some people might claim that, but there's no evidence to support their favor. It's just fucking dogmatism, claiming to be scientific. I'll link a bunch of references about number 2 in a minute. Number 3, fuel injection pressure, nozzle position, and timing mods. Timing adjustment. For indirect injection diesels, it seems the pressure is ideal is in the range of 150 to 175 bar. But if your injection pressures are in these regions already or above, according to the manuals of the vehicles, move the injector nozzle up just a teeny bit higher position. Now be warned, raising them above too high, too much, raising them up a little too much will not only lower the engine's power, but it'll also make all other kinds of pollution skyrocket, which will cause all sorts of other problems. But just only raise it just a little bit, just a little. Find that sweet spot between slightly less power, a lot less smoke, and just enough power, etc., etc. Make that sweet spot when you just raise it a little. Just cut the nitrogen oxides down just a tiny bit, just enough by raising it just a little bit without actually killing the amount of power. For direct injection, the pressures are either in the range of 200 bar to 220 bar for each injector. Pair these injection pressures with raising the injector nozzle just a tiny bit to a little bit higher spot. Just raising them a little bit higher, just a little. Injection timing for best performances and the least amount of smoke is depending on the engine builds, even including these other adjustments, I'm pretty certain. So, do consider. 4. Fuel preheating. Preheating the fuel allows better burning, full vaporization, and better burning and recycling of some heat loss to make better efficiency for fuel-injected engines. And if you wanted to, carburetor engines too, they're gas, and will allow you to cut down certain forms of pollution and get the most out of them BTUs, baby. Swear on it. Preheating the diesel engines 50 to 60 degrees Celsius is best as far as I've seen in research papers, while for gasoline engines, using radiator lines to preheat the fuel going to the injector pumps to the carburetors will increase performance. Or carburetors, yeah. Will increase the performance, cut smoke emissions, especially when paired with extra cooled EGR and this next mod. Or also, now when it comes to air assisted direct injection or air blast injection, they've brought up now. It makes tiny droplets even smaller, down to 8 micron, which is incredible. Certain small places in like Australia and a couple of places, that's technically I don't know if you can preheat the fuel for that kind of injection, because you're basically combining certain psi of fuel with a certain amount of pressure or air. Now you could probably mix that air that's going to the injection system in a small compressor with hot EGR, hot exhaust smoke as an EGR technique, and it'll preheat the air a little bit within maybe a safe region and make it more easy to vaporize. Or you can have a small amount of heat reject, thin amount of ceramic layer plating behind the cylinder lining in the gas engine in the upper area of the cylinders to have a little bit of a low heat rejection technology, essentially. Make it reject less heat, which improves efficiency. You could probably do that instead for an air-assisted fuel injection system. Number 5. Let me get my case out for this one. Now guys, I highly recommend looking into this. There's a bug on it. Sorry. Let me put this book back and bring these papers out. Well. I got a digital copy of the book, Ignition Secrets by Aaron Murakami. I recommend you check it out. At least check that shit out. And I will give you a mini-series about how to basics in doing plasma ignition soon enough. Plasma ignition. I'll use the tip of this punch to explain. Can you guys see this? Can you see it good enough? Okay. What it does, simply, it takes resistance out of your modern car ignition by replacing the regular cable and wire with low resistance or non-resistance cable and wiring all over the sucker. All over the sucker. All over. And puts diodes from the positive side of the ignition coil directly to each spark plug using the MSD or capacitor discharge aspect. Connects it directly to the coil in the battery or magneto. Ideally, if you can charge capacitors with it, you would not need a battery to keep the ignition going if you use a magneto. So it connects to the positives of the discharge module from the positive of the battery and magneto, and where the positive side of this, the CDI or MSD module, to the positive of the coil, where these two connect. It comes off of that, it goes to each spark plug. Each diode does. As a consequence, what that does, it takes that out and it actually allows a form of a negative resistance loop going across the negative resistance loop going across the circuit, allowing, instead of a standard little bitty spark in the plug, especially if you use plugs like from extremespark.com, will take advantage of the plasma ball that will form. Instead of it's a small plasma ball instead of an itty bitty spark. It's actually a plasma ball. There's more ignition energy allowed to go through the circuits. Now, you need an electrician or auto mechanic that's good at electrical work to help you out ideally, and use the ignition diagram of your specific engine model for that specific model of car and series or truck, along with the rest of this guide that I'm actually going to talk about soon enough. And you actually get to see some of it in Aaron Murakami's video on how he installed it on a 1977 Datsun pickup truck. It will turn your spark into, like I said, a small plasma ball. And I gave you the extremespark.com deal. It will capitalize on this effect because of the way it's designed. The plasma arc will spread through the flame and make a far more stable burn. This means less fuel and more air in mixtures can make the same power, and it's way more easily possible. Pair it with steam or water rejection to increase the power. Plasma ignition circuits that are clicking on video, where they hook the battery up to the plasma ignition. They take going off and making that ball sound. What happens, or basically they take a water nozzle, right, and spray it on the spark, the plasma ball, and go. Actually makes it split apart, combust into fire, and combine back into water, and to make a flame over that ball. And actually, there's videos all over YouTube showing this. It's not an edited bullshit. It actually shows you what it can do. This shit's been around since the 70s. This is the biggest improvement to ignition systems as a whole. This has been shown. It's actually been shown to ionize a part and make it work. Now, is it going to make an engine run on water and water vapor? No, that's not possible. There's multiple inputs to make it actually work effectively, and still, it's not that stable. But it can allow you to use steam as an additive instead of just doing fuel on its own. It allows you to lean your fuel out, increase your miles per gallon, and keep your engine's inside cleaned out. Steam cleaning your engine. 6. All metal radiator with more rows. Scotty Kilmer said this and showed it very well. When you use radiators that are all metal, stop, no Panther, and have more rows, radiators built like this will cool your engine better and will last a lot longer than these half-assed plastic hunks of shit. Number 7, and this final one for this episode 2, part 1. Cold air intakes and intercoolers. On an older engine, this would work as long as it starts out wide, it's gradually along the length of the pipe narrows down to the actual spot, to the actual intake size, manifold size. Because that's on the older engines, cold air intake will definitely work. Because modern engines tend to come out of the factory cold air intake already, tend to be. So you got them in the inside of those pipings have to be as smooth as possible to make as little friction with the air as possible. So you get denser, cooler air with a greater air speed. And like I said, most modern air intakes are already cold air in design. So intercooler will be the best option for them, or in some way to make the air colder than the factory air intakes will do. Panther! No! Stop! No! No! No, 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 boy. No, son. No. No. Papa said no. So rare. Now that you can play with. You got all that strands over there of waste cord. The intercooler will condense the air more and cool it and make it more dense after it's been compressed by the air blower side of a turbocharger, or 2 if you use sequential turbocharging. Technically 3 compressors if you use sequential turbo, and you replace the single big turbo with a compound turbo, which a big one starts in a small one spin over at the same time. One blowing into the other, which pressurizes the air even harder before blowing it into the intake. So that's the best form of sequential turboing. Would you stop that? Stop it! Stop it! Having them bottom teeth bucked out. Aggravated. But so that would be, these are your top 7. Now this means more fuel can be used, or preheated fuel can be completely used and burned to make more of a bang. And also preheated fuel can expand into the air charge more easily. And then also another interesting piece, if you use a dual fuel diesel engine to run on natural gas and use biodiesel as the fuel and do the same preheating and adjust the height of each fuel injector just a tiny bit to cut nitrogen oxides down and all this other shit. Rant little fucker. God, so bad. He's rant. But yeah, and use the compressed natural gas coming off of the bottle or CNG bottle at a low pressure due to over 3 to 4,000 psi down to 10 to 20 or 30 at lows. That's massive. That causes massive cooling. That is chilling, freezing. That coldness coming off of there. If you make a high flow valve that can handle the coldness and can stay consistent until Natural gas gets about, I don't know how many PSI. They have it for compressed air supercharger bottles already. So you can do it for natural gas and propane. So that can come off to in a pressure regulator that makes it come off of the bottles consistent pressure until it gets too low and it shuts it off completely. That kind of deal instead of what they conventionally use. Because that would allow the coldness, the extreme coldness of CNG to actually cool down the air intake air coming off the turbos to the intercooler, and then heat the CNG up before it goes into a little spot where radiator line goes through it. Make sure it doesn't freeze anything. That will cool the air intake down so much, and it causes lower pressure CNG to heat up, which is good, and it makes a more even temperature, more thorough burning. That also could get you more MPGs this way too. You can and it allows you to tweak the stuff, and you do it just right. That could be so useful. If they did the right type of regulator, pressure regulators that won't stick or freeze from the coldness. They have means to doing. With the tech, we've had it for a while. But yeah, that'd be awesome. That's another little part 3 of mod number 7. That's a third way of getting cold intake air. It's cold as fuck, going into the motor, directly into the engine, using the coldness of low pressure CNG to cool down compressed turbocharged or supercharged air. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I will see you later. Do check out Aaron Murakami's Ignition Secrets. Also check out his videos on how he installs the plasma ignition on there. Check him out. There's also all kinds of crazy science shit he does on this channel. He has other projects. It's amazing shit that channel shows. But when talking about engine mods, this is the particular subject. Get the Ignition Secrets book. Tell you how the shit works and everything. And you can reproduce circuits yourself. And I can also tell you, and I will give you my guide based off of what I got from watching the videos, especially the Datsun video, and looking up different models of blast MSD modules and blaster ignition spark coils and all that shit. All that. Every damn bit of that. Now you stop. You stop, Panther. No. Do not. No. No. Don't be hard-headed with me. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. I will see you in episode 2, part 2.